All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to RMIT Activator's 5-year celebration. It's good to see you guys here. It has been a while, so great to see some lovely faces that I've seen around before, and hello to everyone who is joining in online. To introduce myself, my name is Gaurav Kawar. You can call me G, as most white people can't pronounce my name. Founder and CEO of Book and Artist. Came out of RMIT Activator back in 2019, and I'll be your MC for the evening. Before we start, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations as the traditional owners of the land on which RMIT University and where we are celebrating from today. We respectfully recognize elders past, present, and future. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. Now, before we start, a bit of housekeeping. In case of an emergency, go out the way you came. And if you're looking for bathrooms, they're on your left. Now, for those joining us online, you can turn on your YouTube automatic captions, which will be able to, I assume, provide a subtitle for what I'm saying. Now, for today, we're celebrating 5 years of innovation, entrepreneurship, and community at RMIT Activator. Over the past few years, Activator has helped inspire, build, and support many founders and startups, including mine. To tell us a bit about my startup, Book and Artist is a platform that allows people and businesses to connect with artists. In a very simple terms, imagine Airtaskers, but replace taskers with local artists. Today, we are a decent-sized business. We're operating in 4 countries. We have 15 people on the team, but wasn't a very long ago where we had no office. I was working out of Melbourne Central cafeterias or State Library, looking for cafes, and had no investors, had no coaches. And that's when RMIT Activator came in for me, which is probably one of the biggest things that could have happened for us in 2019. It gave us everything that we needed to get us started. It gave us a free office, which is, to start with, is a great thing, but amazing coaches and a great community. What I have always liked about RMIT, and it's just my personal feedback, is the willingness of the people to help. Every time I've reached out to anyone for anything, they've always tried to help me. And even if it didn't came out, it was still worth knowing that there are people who are willing to help us. Now, you're all here today because I assume and I know you're part of the Activator journey. We thank you all for your continued support and look forward to many more years of RMIT Activator. I would like if you clap. Thank you. Now, please welcome Matt Salier, Director of RMIT Activator, to talk more about RMIT Activator's journey.
Probably some OH&S thing about jumping up the start, but don't tell anyone. Welcome, everyone. Before we start, I believe we've got a great little video to play for everyone here and at home.
Activator is 5 years young. 5 years of creating impact in communities where entrepreneurial excellence is as good as gold, and there's so much more to come. Let's take a look at how far we've come since 2015 by the numbers. We've allocated over $2 million to more than 95 impact-focused startups, had over 1,000 hackathon participants, and are proud hosts of 97 Talent Collective members. RMIT Activator startups have gone on to raise more than $10 million in funding, all the makings for an exciting future of activated impact. In 2021, we hosted 195 people to discover what's possible during eWeek. In fact, there were over 3,900 people who participated in Activator experiences, including 177 in Activator Vietnam's Founder Hub and 344 speaker spots along the way. 344. Told you we've been busy. Our impact grows within RMIT and is demonstrated by our founders in our connections to industry from our home base of Melbourne and echoed throughout the world. So it's 2022. What's next? What's possible? Our plan is to be a guiding light for innovation and entrepreneurship, to stand out in the noise. to continue to be the hub for transformational experiences and inspire entrepreneurs looking to change the world. Thank you for being a part of it. We're just getting started.
I think there's a special prize for working out who the voiceover was as well later on. But, Woman-Jika, everyone, and I too would like to add my respects to the elders past, present and future. It's wonderful to be here IRL, I think that's our new acronym we're using, in real life. And great to have people physically in the room and everyone at home as well. And certainly knowing that every single one of you has benefited from or been an amazing supporter of Activator over the years, thank you. This is all about you. This is not nothing other than a thank you to our community for helping us get where we have. As we all know, RMIT began as a working man's college. Its ambition set down by its founders was a skilled hand and a cultivated mind. And with this intent from its inception, RMIT has always had entrepreneurship in its vein. It's always been part of who we are. And that unique capacity to inspire bold new ways of thinking, develop people who are capable of changing jobs, careers, industries themselves, seeking and creating new businesses like G's talked about, is part of why we're all here. Entrepreneurial thinking and doing coming hand in hand. So as a result, the entrepreneurship and innovation is in the DNA of RMIT. But the emergence of Activator in 2016, as we've just seen, 5 years ago, was centralised, created that centralised hub, created a place for gravity for people and place to come together. And we're really proud of what's happened, as you can see from that video, taking that through a whole new level. As people might recall, a little bit of a down history lane, and Colin and others in the room will remember, in 2016, lots of universities were doing lots of different things around university aggregation of entrepreneurship and innovation, and RMIT wanted to go big at the time. We had an aspiration, so we had a bunch of committed internal champions, Ian Palmer in the business school, Adam Seesman, who's here tonight, great to see you, Adam, Swee Mac from RNI, and a whole range of other people all around the university said, I think we can do something different, I think we can do something better than we've been doing. Now, this isn't to say that there wasn't amazing stuff happening for decades before. You know, the traditional business planning comp had 4,000 different ideas in the 10 years up to Activator forming. We rolled that into Activator. We had what was called the New Enterprise Innovation Fund, NEIF, a wonderful acronym. That became the Activator Capital Fund. That was rolled into what we're trying to build. And it's wonderful to have some of the board members from the Activator Capital Fund here tonight as well. And like any true startup, back in 2016, we were really agile. We were out there customer persona mapping, understanding what we could do, building those internal partnerships at pace. Everyone from the fashion program to the business schools was in our tent. What can we do to help? How can we do it? And at the end of 2016, start of 2017, Activator was born. In the early days, it was known as Activator X. I think the X was the X factor. It was probably common in those days as well. But pretty soon it was Activator. And now, as it was then, remains a place to grow those entrepreneurial skills, that entrepreneurial thinking in more than 90,000 students we have here. In 2017, as we heard, we have over 1,000 students receive these sorts of experiences. In 2021, as we saw, it was close to 4,000, and that's still growing. At inception, the vision was always a bold one. Presence in the middle of the campus, driving entrepreneurship in Melbourne CBD, with Brunswick, Burundura, Vietnam, Singapore following shortly after. But creating a place where all entrepreneurship would be democratised at scale, accessible to everyone. No one was left out. So, like many universities, efforts to coordinate this activity in those first few years saw lots of experiments. And if you've watched some of the videos as you arrived, some of the earlier staff members have talked about that. And we weren't just creating an accelerator or incubator, we certainly did, but we wanted to create this strong sense of people, of place, of purpose, and really that community that you all represent here and online tonight from day one. So there were 9-day boot camps, there were sandbox programs, there was always on micro creds, there was marquee acceleration, incubation, mentoring programs, the whole gamut. Everything was developed thick and fast. And many, of course, as any true startup, many were tried, many failed, some succeeded. But we always focused on experience. We always focused on how this could be different. How could we do that experiential piece that was so important, so tied to that inception of the university of learning by doing. And that's a mirror of what we have today, of the model today. Transformative, memorable experiences in a supportive community of which you're all a part. So I started in 2019, unbelievably nearly 3 years ago now, and this was one of the things that really stuck with me, despite the size and complexity of RMIT. Activator has bottled something quite unique in its approach, and our impact is disproportionate to our scale. That community enables that. And of course, it was pleasantly surprising to see that what wooed me here was actually evident in practice as well. So that was a good positive one. But don't get me wrong, there was certainly a lot of ironing out to do. As with many startups, we got ahead of ourselves. We'd done a whole bunch of stuff in some areas and downright lost our way in others. But within a few short months, this was sorted through and we really began to sharpen the focus. But if anyone could do the maths, that was 2 years ago. And then, of course, the last 2 years happened. So I can still see the sign that we put out, and I think Paz is here tonight as well, that said, it was on the 13th of March 2020, that apologised and told everyone we wouldn't be there next week. We think there's something going on. We're just going to see how it plays out. And little did we know, right? So I think that sign was still there 18 months later. But because of this community, because of this approach, because of this learning by doing, because of the agility that we'd baked in, we were able to move quickly and do things together. So that pandemic, which obviously is front of mind for all of us when we come back to an event like this and get excited about being in the same room, really drew us closer to the core components of the university. We helped design experiential online experiences in our accredited programs at scale for the first time, and certainly helped a whole bunch of students that were at risk of not graduating by providing industry experiences and programs through our innovation methodologies. We ran webinars on what COVID was and how disruption for business could be a positive thing. Like everyone, we were trying to help. We were trying to make sense of what was unfolding. We scaled up our use of things like Miro and Zoom. Remember those tools? They were those unique things back then. And at the same time, we trained others to do the same. We subscribed to event production tools like Hop-In and community tools like GatherTown, and generally went into that really niche startup mode. We just tried everything, hacking solutions as problems evolved. In some of those, we were really successful. Dan and Dylan from the team, and there's a great video from Dan on the screens, managed to present to Zoomtopia 2022, the annual event for Zoom globally, about what we were doing with Zoom and Miro to create experiential experiences for our students in accredited programs. It was truly an example of global best practice in that entrepreneurial education, pushing learning and education to new levels for that maximum impact. And so that remained the case throughout the pandemic. We worked with the City of Melbourne on CBD business recovery. We co-designed an Indigenous growth program called Trade Routes, which is going great. We secured a 5-year program of funding with schools and businesses from an energy provider called GPG. We commercialised our founder program into Southeast Asia. We partnered with Circular Economy Victoria for a circular program of development with Sustainable Vic, and we launched, or at least tried to launch, our Cyber Ready Cloud Innovation Centre, which of course is a 10-year partnership with AWS. I say try to launch because I think we set about 3 dates, didn't we, Georgia? And all of them passed. We tried to get people back in and we didn't get there. But all of this happened while we're all remote. All of this happened in this massive period of disruption. A real example of how we approached doing what we teach others to do ourselves. Vietnam took off as well. You saw the numbers from only last year, but having been established a few years after Melbourne, despite 100% remote delivery from here into Vietnam, we saw numbers increase in that Future Founders Comp. We saw the quality and the passion of the teams really levelling up to what we saw in Australia, which is just amazing. We doubled down on the focus on impact and alignment of our programs to the SDGs. We ran female founder programs, circular economy, social impact, tech for good, all themed versions of our Launch Hub Accelerator. And of course, that philosophy built on the concept of constant disruption from within. We worked even harder alongside our academic colleagues who were really struggling, delivering accredited education with our student degrees, managing at Activator to navigate our way through this brave new world. Knowing we're able to bring that magic of community, knowing we're able to bring that special thing that you all bring, that inspiration of experiential education through some of the most challenging times, really kept us all focused, really galvanised the team around what we're here to deliver. So we've grown in leaps and bounds since that inception in 2016, and through all our work, Activator kept providing that help for students, our business partners, identifying and preparing them for the challenges of tomorrow, today. And so what of tomorrow? Where's this going? What do we do for the next 5 years? We don't settle down, we don't sit back and watch the tumbleweeds go past. We understand that to be relevant in a modern world. Universities must create those entrepreneurial, enterprising students, confident, agile graduates that can flourish in workplaces of the future. And we believe that entrepreneurial thinking and entrepreneurial doing is core to that. That's why we'll continue fostering the best minds through our startup incubator and our entrepreneurship programs. After all, it's kind of in our name, right? We continue to show the way, activating the impact of our students, staff and alumni and all of our business partners in the world that they want to create. In the way the original entrepreneurial impact of this university, this institution was realised. We continue to grow the team. I think Kate's in the room here today as well, and another 3 roles in learning design and digital delivery and digital content development, all starting in the next couple of weeks. We're continuing to focus on that social impact piece across everything we do. Global growth programs for the Indigenous businesses that I mentioned is growing, circular economy, and wonderful with the Circular Economy Victoria partnership we have, female founders and so on. We're expanding those global programs. Founder Hub, which we've done with DFAT in Southeast Asia, is now moving to Europe with our partners in RMIT Europe, and we're working more closely than ever on what those opportunities are. And we hope soon to have a new Activator Vietnam manager on board, and just this week secured additional funding from a VC firm in Vietnam to deliver a program of activities around sustainability, again, from hackathons to acceleration. So building on success with cybersecurity in the Cloud Innovation Centre with AWS, you'll see this morph into the Digital Transformation Hub, adding innovation projects in digital tech areas like AI, machine learning, data analytics and so on. And with our partners in the Centre for Cybersecurity Research and Innovation, we're developing a range of cybersecurity educational products. With our circular economy partners, we're doing the same. So we don't stand still. We're constantly looking at how we can evolve and add value back. And of course, as we refill these amazing spaces, our building on Victoria Street and down on Burke Street, we're looking to build and connect that talent collective, those wonderful coaches, mentors and founders that we have as part of our team, our extended team, to streamline how those connections are made through a new platform. So that feels like a lot. I think that's about it from me. There is no call to action tonight. This is just a wonderful chance to celebrate what can be achieved when we all come together and really focus with that tenacity and grit that we all have within us to connect. And again, I hope tonight you find a chance to connect and make those connections and collaborations, spark those new ideas, and the conversations that you'll have here are contagious. Take a chance to meet someone new if you haven't already, and keep building this amazing community. I think Maya Angelou, who is a wonderful poet and civil rights activist, says it best. People will forget what you said, people will forget what you do, but people will never forget how you made them feel. I hope you all feel really welcome and feel part of the community that is Activator. Thank you for being here on our 5th birthday, and we hope to see you for many more years to come. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you, Matt. Really appreciate that. Before we introduce our guest speaker for tonight, I'd love to welcome Eugenia Yuan and the Activator team to show you around the Activator space one more time.
We would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations as the traditional owners of the land on which RMIT Activator stands and innovates. We respectfully recognise elders past, present and future. Always was and always will be Aboriginal land.
Hi, I'm Eugenia. Welcome to RMIT Activator. We are the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Hub of RMIT University, and we're here to support you on your entrepreneurial journey. Hey Matt!
Hey Eugenia, how you going? Good to see you. And welcome, great to see you here, mate. It's terrific to have new faces around Activator. We love to see you here, and you're in awesome hands with Eugenia today.
Thanks Matt, and I think Juan is right upstairs talking to a founder now, so let's go and see what he's up to.
Thank you, Eugenia. Oh, hi Sam, nice to see you.
Pleasure to see you as well, Juan.
For our new members, what would be that piece of advice that you would like to share with them about Activator experiences?
Good question. I think the best part about the experience is the community. So definitely make sure you're reaching out and connecting with like-minded people. It's probably the best piece of advice I can give you right now.
Thank you, Sam. Great advice.
And here's some of the Activator team. Has anyone seen Georgia?
I'm over here talking to Tim. Tim, tell us about your favourite Activator moment and introduce yourself to us.
My name's Tim Ottaway. I'm the co-founder of Project Flock, and my best RMIT Activator memory is going to weekly Monday morning stand-ups in a really hard time during the lockdowns in 2020.
Thanks, Tim.
And you will see us at a few different spots around the campus. That's it for now. We look forward to meeting you at Activator. See ya!
It has been great working in the Activator course working space and, be part of the community. I've always enjoyed it, and it has something that has driven motivation for us and our team. Now, speaking of community, who best to talk about community other than Judy Anderson? If you know Judy, you'll appreciate the wisdom and the sparkling energy she brings to the startup space, qualities that went a long way while she was CEO of Startup Victoria. She doesn't refer to herself as a fast-track Judy for nothing. With her talent of meaningful connections and warm words of encouragement, known for making a difference to founders that have crossed her path. And I can vouch for that. I have crossed that path and I have felt great about it. So today, Judy will sit down with Matt for a candid fireside chat with a difference. Judy and Matt, come on down.
How funny is that video?
It was very funny.
We haven't seen that before, by the way, so that was awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, so welcome.
Thank you.
We were talking before about how awesome it was to be back with physical people here, and the people at home, we miss them and we love them. We want to see them back in here, but how good does it feel to be back in a space with people and interacting and so on?
Yeah, it's awesome to be back. And before we get into too much of the content, just also want to acknowledge the traditional owners that we're sitting on and meeting today and pay my respects to the Wurundjeri people. And it is a very welcoming space that we're in. Like, you can feel the warmth and the energy whenever you watching that video. It was just a classic example of the culture at RMIT Activator. You can't help but feel invited in and want to participate, even if you're not physically there. So.
Well, yeah, it was a fun thing to do. I'm interested in my glow that was warmly there on the screen, but Eugenia guided me well. So now, look, I don't know if many people know this, but you're an RMIT alum. You've spent a lot of time in these hallowed halls. Tell me about how that connection plays out for you. What was that experience like? What do you think about RMIT?
Yeah, it was pre-Activator. So I studied entrepreneurship at RMIT in 2008 through to 2011. So that at that time it was still entrepreneurship was very hotly contested as can you teach this? Is this something that you're either born with and you're a natural entrepreneur, or can you learn how to build a startup? Can you learn? And I remember a lot of people, my friends, you leave high school and you go to university and they're saying, what do you say, entrepreneur? What's that? Yeah. It was an amazing experience. It was a very niche course at the time. And what that meant for my experience is that it attracted people that were just interested in building and inventing things and solving problems, and that wanted to, as cheesy as it sounds, change the world a little bit. But what we experienced was different. It was a university course. It was education based. We didn't learn lean startup methodology like you would learn now. In a pre-accelerator or an entrepreneurship course, we learned how do you write a business plan and commercial law.
You might have been one of those ideas in that business planning comp, right?
Yes. I did do the business plan competition. Runner up. Thank you very much.
There you go.
And so that's how I got to know RMIT as an actual student. And then even though the Activator didn't exist, if it did, I definitely would have done it. I did something a little bit different, but it did plug me into industry, which was the RMIT Fast Track program, which is where I got my Twitter handle from. And that was where you worked with a industry organisation. For me, that was Deloitte, and you got given a mentor, an advisor, and a problem to solve, and you were put into a team with your fellow students, and then you were just basically given 3 months, and that's it. Just build it. And it was awesome. And through there, that's how I built my network, how I got to meet other entrepreneurs who've gone on to do amazing things. And ever since, I've been a fan of RMIT and obviously involved with the Activator in my capacity at Startup Vic as well.
Yeah, and you're brushing over the Hive. Do you want to tell everyone about the Hive?
Oh, the Hive was this. The Hive is this thing built by a couple of dudes who were in my entrepreneurship course at the time, called James and Luke. Luke, who actually now works in San Francisco for Influx, which is a Melbourne headquartered scale-up that was founded by Startup Vic's co-founder, Lenny Mayo. So Luke and James, they launched something called The Hive, which was every Friday or every other Friday, they would just invite an entrepreneur, someone that they thought was interesting, and the students would just come around and they would have a couple of drinks and just ask them questions. It was like a self-organised student fireside chat. And that was awesome.
And that got a bit of a buzz for you? Like, what was it? That seed?
Did the Hive get a buzz?
Yeah, the Hive get a buzz. Boom, boom. Get in, yes. Get that up. Thank you.
Yeah, the Hive got a buzz. It was awesome. Yeah, it had a real... I guess that was... I didn't think about it as a community at the time, but it definitely was. It was a place where I was connecting with like-minded people. No one was forcing me to be there as part of my course content. It was just an interesting thing to do with interesting people that sparked new ideas. And even if it didn't deliver any practical outcomes, I was just absorbing interesting information, and it made life fun and interesting.
And I think you've sort of modelled your journey post that around that same concept, you know, this sort of a servant leadership style thing. You try, you can pick up Lenny and the connections, you know these people. So tell us about how you brought that way of, you know, working through creating Startup Vic to what it was when you left, or what it is now. You know, you created this incredible community, you know, probably one of the largest in the country, through that, modelling that same thing you learned during the Hive and whatever else, you know?
Yeah, for sure. For those who don't know Startup Vic, it's a grassroots, not-for-profit community organisation. I didn't start it. I cannot take the glory. It was founded actually as a meetup group called Lean Startup Melbourne back in 2014 by Lenny, who I mentioned before, and Scott Handsacker, who now runs Cyrise, which is the cybersecurity accelerator. And it was just a bunch of founders getting together for beers on a Friday night, talking shop. There were like 30 of them. Like, there weren't the same number and density of startups in Melbourne back then. And so what they had built was just this regular cadence. You know, the fact that it was grounded in a meetup meant that on the last Thursday of every month, you just knew that
that's where you were.
That's where it is. This is what's happening. You may, and then just grew naturally and organically to like a few thousand people. Then Inspire 9, one of the local co-working spaces in Cremorne, was like, oh yeah, we'll host you. You know, you're a scrappy not-for-profit. You don't have any money. Like, don't worry about it. We'll host you. You know, we'll put out some beers. And then at some point it morphed into a pitch night where founders would get up on stage and like, it was more like a comedy, like open mic night than like what we organize, what's organised today. And then, so when I came in, it was already really established. It had like tens of thousands of people. It was about 25,000 people at that time. Today it's over 60,000, which is Australia's largest entrepreneurship network. Right. And a lot of the job, I got to say, was just to maintain the basic principles of community, which is to be there for those people, to have regular cadences of events, to be led by representatives from within. So the members of the board of Startup Vic were really important, that we had founders and people who were actually building on the board. And then obviously the basics, like solve the problems that matter. So like actually listening to founders and entrepreneurs and actually figuring out what problems are we trying to solve right now? How can a collective that represents the group, like Startup Vic, help to solve it, whether it's through connections to investors, professional service providers, representing shared views to government and policy providers, through to just like being a shoulder to cry on, like when, you know, and a safe place, you know, because we were neutral. Startup Vic is neutral territory. It's a place where you can just, you know, be. Just be, exactly. You can just come and ask a dumb question if you don't know the answer. You can, you know, come to like Growth Club, for example, which is for our scale-up founder entrepreneurs, so those who are a little later on. You can come to a dinner and in a safe space with other founders, you can talk about how hard it was to fire that person, or what should you do in this trade-off situation where you feel like there's no right way, you know, so just a place to figure it out.
So that arc, I mean, we're here talking about the 5-year arc of Activator, but that arc of growth, you know, to 60,000 members, to, you know, 30 blokes having guys and girls presumably having beers.
There's guys and girls now.
Yeah, maybe it was just blokes then, but having some beers and pizza to 60,000 people. What are some of the key things you think led to that growing in that way, and not sort of splicing apart? You know, how did it stay together? What were those core components? Solving a problem that matters sounds pretty cool.
Definitely solving a problem that matters, being consistent. you know, and like having a cadence as part of that. But yeah, just being consistent, consistent with sticking to your values and what you say you stand for, and actually delivering on that, you know. And a lot of the time, sometimes that means saying no to things just as much as it means saying yes to things. Partnerships are a really big part of it. Like Startup Vic is a small not-for-profit, you know. A lot of people think at first glance when they see our presence that we're like this like 50-person team or whatever. Yeah, but I keep saying we. I've handed over the reins.
You're allowed to say we for a little bit longer.
Yeah, I've handed over the reins to a wonderful new CEO, Vicky Sterling. So she's taking charge of growth now. But partnerships, like we have with the RMIT Activator, we can't do it alone. And if anything, all we are for the startup ecosystem in Victoria, Startup Vic is a network manager, really. We're there just to facilitate things to happen across the community and to make those connections. And so a lot of Startup Vic success was just building strong, true relationships with industry. So that's all of the VC funds, angel networks, universities, accelerator programs, the Stripes and the AWSs and the Microsofts of the world who are providing services, governments, students, all sorts.
And I think one of the things that strikes me is that you often don't know you're part of a community. That you didn't realise you were part of something until you're part of it. Like what do you think? And we're talking a lot about community tonight because obviously we think there's something special in that, and it's been something that's been a constant theme through RMIT and certainly Activator's journey. What are some of the communities you didn't realise you were a part of as you were doing that building that you sort of went, oh wow, there's all these people and they're my people. How did you...
Totally. I didn't realise I was part of a community of imposters. There's so many entrepreneurs and so many great founders in Australia and in Victoria. And when you work alongside them, obviously some of those characteristics and traits rub off on you. You get a little bit more tolerant of risk or maybe a bit more creative. But at the end of the day, I've never built my own business. That's not my journey, and so after a couple of years, I realized the people that I was connecting with and feeling a real feeling of you're my peer and this is my place to talk about problems and to, just connect was actually with other ecosystem builders. So I've had lots of conversations about how to do things with Michael Batko, who's the CEO of StartMate. Zoom's in lockdown with how are you keeping people alive? How are you getting people to enjoy events online? Having conversations with Kate Cornick regularly, who's the CEO of LaunchVic, which is the state government startup agency, and just being aligned on strategy, and trying to use our forces of, a grassroots community with a top-down government strategy, line that up. So that was my unknown community. But I also think there's probably a lot of people out there who are moving through the world who don't realise they're actually plugged into the Activator. And I think that's something that'll be really interesting to look at for the next 5 years. All of those staff members, alumni, students who haven't figured out that they're a node in this network, and there's something special here for them too.
And so we talked a bit about the digital, that challenge of digital engagement, digital connectivity, digital care. How did you grapple with that? Did you have the same sort of sleepless nights about how on earth am I going to hold this group together? What did you do?
Definitely. We just had to figure it out, like everyone, So at the time it was myself and Poppy Chirella, who's the Director of Programs and Partnerships, and Elise Dowden, who was our Events and Community Coordinator at the time. And it was literally just us on Zoom, figuring out, literally going into the settings and figuring out what we can do, and then doing research on other software or what's being built or what are other people doing. And once we'd figured out, I guess, the tech stack of how to engage with our community, it then became about, well, what's the experience? And I know that sounds backwards. We probably should have started there. But then so, well, what's going to happen? Classic service design, from the moment they discover your event, what do they experience? What happens what's the interaction like? And then what happens once they're in there? What do you want them to do with that information or that interaction? Is that something that should even be delivered online? Or now does it look different? Now is it content? So it was just kind of figuring out, I guess, what are the needs of the people? Why are we hosting this thing? And is this actually the best way to deliver it, rather than just defaulting to all those
and
things?
experimenting, as you said, just trying lots of stuff.
Totally.
Seeing what the community came back and said that's actually helping, working, or what they weren't engaging in.
Yeah, we found this, because we one of our regular events before the pandemic was Founder Connect, which is like a speed networking event, and you meet like 7 different people and you have 7-minute conversations over the course of like a breakfast or a lunch. Like, how do we make that work? And the first iteration was literally Zoom and Zoom breakout rooms. And Puppy and I had Post-it notes on our desk, and we're trying to manually match everyone, and we're trying to move everyone into breakout rooms every 7 minutes, and it was absolute chaos. And then we found this software where you could actually just everyone joined that software, and you set some rules, and then it automatically just had an algorithm that bounced people into different things. So, and that worked perfectly.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when we talked before this, we started talking about digital communities, and I know you've got a bit of a, you're a studious person, so you've been looking at DAOs and thinking about what does it mean when you have digital organisations and how their communities get created. Have you got anything that you've sort of a light bulb moment in relation to that?
Yeah, I've had a bit of exposure into the world of DAO. So for anyone who hasn't come across that acronym recently, digital autonomous organizations, which is basically a decentralized community across a network that just happens to be built on the blockchain, which I feel like everyone says blockchain. Anyway, so it's interesting because digital autonomous organizations allow people to connect and self-organize under a set of rules. And so putting all of the tech and the jargon aside, like where digital communities can start to engage is you're no longer connected even by a sense of place. That could be one variable for how you're connected, but maybe you're connected based on what type of industry you're in and you organize online entirely. Or maybe you're connected by how old you are, or maybe you're connected by the pledge that your business makes for the environment, or whatever it might be. And so those communities no longer have to, the central nodes on a network, where normally communities are clustered around, they no longer have to be physical. They can be elsewhere.
Yeah, and I think there's a whole lot of opportunities that opens up. That I think being able to connect to things that are geographically distant from you, being able to talk to people in different ways about the topics that matter to you, it opens up your opportunities, right?
Totally. So, for example, imagine if, like, in the next iteration of an RMIT Activator community event, there's already interactions with the Vietnam campus going into Singapore, but imagine if it was actually there was a way for the cohort of the Activator to connect with any founder in the world who was building a startup that kind of looked like yours. And you could collaborate and you could actually share problems or ideas or connections. Like, that's the kind of thing that I think digital communities can open up.
There's a huge possibility, and Wild West, I think that's there. And if you think about the arc of this physical ecosystem of Victoria, can you see some parallels? Like, what are some of the things that you've really noticed shift that you're really excited about? What are the hot points for you?
So busy. It's so busy.
Hard to cut through, noisy.
It was in the video. How do you cut through this really noisy ecosystem? Like I said, only less than a decade ago, the startup community, in Australia wasn't called that. It was more like this scene of weirdos who'd opted out of a dominant ideology to go build something that they cared about. Whereas it's in the common zeitgeist now. People know what startups are. They know what tech is. They know what entrepreneurship is. We've got almost cult status, heroes to look towards. Even Mike Cannon-Brookes has been in the news lately with his work. And I think so the number one thing that's changing is how many people are working in the space, how it's just becoming like a mainstream industry. Like, the startup is a sector, it's not a side scene. And that brings challenges, but it also brings great things. So the thing that more activity brings is a higher quality. So, we can start to see more competition. There are now dozens of accelerator programs in Victoria alone, let alone across the country. We have more investors entering into the space as well, seeing startups as a legitimate asset class for growth and for impact. Yeah, so we're seeing a lot more competition, a lot more money coming into it, and a lot more people seeing startups as a genuine career path. So even if you're like me and you're not a founder and you're not an entrepreneur, you can still work in this space and have an impact and do cool things and be around exciting stuff. So I think even if you're a student at RMIT and you're not quite sure if like being a founder is the right thing for you, or you haven't found that idea that you love, or you haven't found that problem that you really want to solve, like you can still come to the Activator, join someone else's team, you know, and help them.
Well, and Fast Track, you mentioned the innovation challenges, that opportunity to play with that entrepreneurial thinking, with those new innovation methodologies, they're the types of challenges that we want to see many more students participating in. For that reason, this growing ecosystem, whatever the right word is for it, needs that fuel, needs these entrepreneurial graduates to think of that as a viable path.
Yeah, which it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's starting to pivot towards where you're going in your journey, right? Like, so you're starting to do something new. It's another stretch for you. It's linked to this. Can you share a bit about it?
Yes.
Is this like it's not like an announcement, right? We just
I guess this is the most public forum that I've spoken about.
Share a little bit about what you're putting your skills to.
Yeah. So I've actually joined forces with another RMIT alumni who I think is online. Hi Dom, if you're online. So yeah, I've joined forces with a Melbourne-based entrepreneur who I met at my time at Startup Vic, and we were just kind of super fans of each other's work. And I'm really excited to actually be working full time with him. So Dom Pym, who is the co-founder of UpBank, which so it's one of the fastest growing digital banks in Australia. Most people know like that funky triangle with the orange branding. So Dom's the co-founder of Up and former co-founder of Pin Payments, another successful startup, and he's got lots of other things behind him. You know, he's had 20 years of hard knocks as an entrepreneur and as a software engineer. So he's very passionate about giving back to the next generation. He's got lots of war stories and lots of good advice. So we're working together to basically help the next generation of entrepreneurs. We want to look at improving some of the capital flows in Australia. And practically we're also investing. So, you know, we're investing in fintech startups, in women-led startups in any category, and also like what we both really care about, which is the planet. So if founders are looking to solve and heal the planet, that's also what we care about. So.
I can see the founders in the room, sharpening their pitch decks already. But
yeah,
it's a different side for you to be on, right? So, and this is a good example of the maturity of an ecosystem that people like Dom and others are cycling back funds back into that ecosystem. Is that a fun journey for you? You're enjoying it?
It is so fun. And if you'd asked me what I'd be doing with my time when I first started at Startup Vic, I didn't even know this kind of job existed. You know, and we're starting to see more, like, you know, Dom's an example, you know, Mike Cannon-Brooks and the guys from Atlassian are an example. There's, you know, Sam Kronenberg from McLeod. We're seeing this wave of founders getting to a level of success and exiting, and then having the means to give back to the next generation and do that in a meaningful way. And we're seeing this whole another wave that's coming up. You know, the one underneath, and then there's another one under that, and then so I think there's a lot of cool work that can be done. And even like, for example, you know, Hugh Stevens from Galileo VC, that's a new fund headquartered in Victoria. You know, he's the co-founder of Sked Social, which is a Melbourne-based scale-up, and I met Hugh. Like, here's an example of, like, I think a great interconnected community. I met Hugh and Dom at a Startup Vic event. They were members of Startup Vic. They met each other at a dinner that Startup Vic hosted. Hugh decided he wanted to raise a fund to start investing in the great founders that he was just mentoring in his daily life. And so Dom invested in Hugh to help him get his fund off the ground. So I think it's just all this, like, and I've got so many examples of that interconnectedness that's happening.
I feel like I want to map your mind of connections as you talk. Like, who can see that network map that's in your mind? I think it's.
But everyone's got one.
Well, this is
the
right.
thing. This is the thing about a great community. Is like you will all have your own version of that. And the thing with great communities is talking about it and like having those conversations and having room for serendipity to go, oh, you know that, but you know, like even Gaurav. It's like seeing Gaurav here as the MC. I was like, I've pitched at a startup big pitch night in 2019. I remember when it was just an idea, and now Book an Artist is in Singapore, and there was a fundraising announcement today. It's it's awesome.
It's excellent. So I think we're drawing to the close, but there were some wonderful questions up there that I hope everyone's had a crack at here and online. I wanted to throw them at you really quickly. 3 quick questions.
No pressure.
Right, yeah, it's a very, very precious situation. What technology are you most excited about today?
Ooh. This is going to sound very creepy, but I am very excited about, I don't know if I've got the name right, the Neuralink thing that Elon Musk is doing. Yeah. More because language is a pesky thing. And if you can think your thoughts to someone else, I feel like that could solve a lot of problems. It could also create a lot of problems.
Okay, so
but,
guinea pig number 2, perhaps, for Neuralink. Okay,
yeah, I think that would be interesting. I'm interested to see what happens there.
What can you do today that you couldn't do 5 years ago?
Say no.
Okay. That's
yes.
a good one.
Yeah, definitely had to learn that. And what I mean by that is more focus. In a market like we're in right now, the Australian startup ecosystem is growing at a rapid rate. There's so much opportunity. There's so many things you could be doing, and you almost like this FOMO, right? Like you feel like you're trying to grab at all these things, and the thing that I've learned and that has given me a lot of peace in life in general is just really having a close relationship with what I would like to be doing and what I would think is valuable and a useful thing to be doing with my life, and just staying anchored in that and focusing.
I like it. Last one, and you've already given a bunch of these tonight. What's the most valuable piece of advice you could give to entrepreneurs at the start of their journey?
To start? Yes, just to start. Just to start. Like just on every day, just pick one thing that is the next problem to solve. The next problem to solve, the next problem to solve, just to keep going every day. It really is a marathon. You cannot build a billion-dollar company overnight when you've never done it before. Like if you want to build a hugely successful global startup, I think you just got to start and just solve one problem every single day.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Judy. It has been wonderful talking to you. I'm so glad you said yes. I'm so glad we could bring you back to RMIT in real life. Please join me in thanking Judy.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
And we're going to throw back to G. We just mentioned a wonderful announcement, because he's too modest to say it himself, but has announced today a $1 million raise closing off, and Tim Fung from Airtasker being one of the investors. So the guru of marketplaces in G's corner is only going to see Book an Artist keep going, mate. So well done. Congratulations.
Thank you. Well done.
And thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Judy and Matt. I really enjoyed the chat. The last thing that you said was to start. One thing that we tell our team is to make mistakes. So we like, you know what, don't care, try, make mistakes, and write it down so that you don't remember to do it again. But that's one piece of advice we got 3 years ago from, I think, one of the coaches at RMIT, to never be afraid of making mistakes. Which is really good to know, actually. It's time to wrap up the formalities and connect with one another over food and drinks at the back. If you haven't had a chance, please take a card at the back from the registration table and answer one of the thought-provoking questions that they put through. You can either answer it anonymously, or you can share your name. Before we finish up, I'd like to say a few thank yous to everyone. Firstly, Matt and Judy for speaking today. That was great. The Activator team, who makes this dream a reality. I really do appreciate it, so I hope everyone else also does. The supporters and partners who believe in our vision. And most important, you and your community are the heart and soul of RMIT Activator. So, now, finally, this is a birthday celebration after all, so I'll get some friends to come up and cut a cake.
join me. So Adam is one of the people that wrote one of the original business cases for Activator with a bunch of others. Yeah. It's awesome to have him here. He also was my first boss here at RMIT, so thank you for that.
Well, colleagues.
So we're not blowing out candles, we're just cutting the cake. Thanks for coming to our birthday party. Yeah. Thanks, mate. Cheers. Enjoy the food and drinks, and thanks all for coming. Thanks, G, for all your work, and thanks to the team. Awesome night. Cheers.
Thank you.